I'm Toby.
And I'm Katie, and we are High Country Women.
And today we're going to show you how to make a pillow cover for any size throw pillow. It features an envelope style back so you can easily remove it and toss it in the wash. And we've also included an optional ruffle edge for a little extra detail.
If you don't already have our free pattern, you'll need to download it so you can get the dimensions for your pillow size. Start by deciding what size throw pillow you want to make your cover for. If you already have a pillow but aren't sure of the size, check the tag. It often lists the dimensions. If not, you can simply measure it yourself.
The charts on page 5 and 7 of the pattern include common throw pillow sizes, along with the dimensions you'll need for your pattern pieces. Page 5 is specific to down inserts, while the chart on page 7 is specific to polyester inserts. Down condenses more than polyester, so we have different measurements to make sure both pillow covers fit properly. If your pillow size isn't listed on those charts, head to pages 6 or 8 and follow the formula to calculate your own measurements.
If you're adding a ruffle, you'll have to decide how full you want it. You can either make it 1.5 times the perimeter of the pillow or 2 times the perimeter of the pillow.
We've included measurements for both. For example, this ruffle was made with a stiffer cotton canvas, so I went with the 1.5 measurements, while this one was made from a lighter weight fabric using the 2 times measurement for a fuller look. On pages 9 and 10, you'll find our fabric requirements chart to help you figure out how much fabric you'll need based on your pillow size and your fabric width.
We typically recommend using a light to medium weight woven fabric for this project, and we like to use a cotton canvas for the back pieces, which we've linked for you in the pattern.
The first step of the instructions is to cut out all your pieces. We like to use a rotary cutter and a ruler to get nice straight edges. Today we'll be making the 12-inch by 20-inch pillow cover. If you're cutting out the ruffle piece, your fabric likely won't be wide enough for one continuous ruffle strip, so you'll need to piece multiple strips together. Align the short ends right sides together and sew with the 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press those seams open to reduce bulk. You should have 1 front piece, 2 back pieces, and an optional ruffle piece. In step 2, we're going to prep the back pieces. On the long edge of one back pattern piece, fold 1/4 inch towards the wrong side and press. Fold again 1/2 inch and press. Then top stitch along the folded edge. Repeat for the other back pattern piece. If you're not adding a ruffle, skip to step 6 on page 14. If you are adding a ruffle, we'll go ahead and prep that piece now. To make your ruffle, sew the short ends right sides together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then press that seam open. Fold the ruffle piece in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, aligning the long, raw edges, and press. Sew along the raw edge at a 1/4 inch using a long stitch length, 4 millimeters or longer. As you're sewing, stop and start on either side of each seam, leaving long tails on both ends without backstitching. This will allow you to gather in sections rather than gathering the entire ruffle at once with multiple seams, which can become bulky and difficult. Once you've added your gathering stitches, we are going to pull the bobbin threads to gather the fabric until the length of the raw edge is equal to the perimeter of your front pattern piece. We like to add a pin near the beginning of each set of gathering stitches, then wrap the thread around the pin in a figure 8 to keep the gathers from flattening. Now we'll attach the ruffle to the front pattern piece. Evenly distribute the gathers as you pin the ruffle to the right side of the front piece. Position the raw edges together and adjust the gathers so they are spaced evenly. Bring the ruffle as close to the corners as possible. Slightly rounded corners are perfectly fine. Add a few extra gathers within about 1 inch to 2 inches of each corner so the ruffle doesn't end up looking flat in those areas. Sew the ruffle to the front pattern piece using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, which should end up being in between your 2 lines of gathering stitches. We find it easiest to sew with the gathered ruffle on top so that you can see your gathering stitches and manage the gathers as you sew. As you approach each corner, sew in a smooth, rounded curve. Now we'll stitch all the pieces together. Lay one of the back pieces down on top of the pillow front with right sides together and hemmed edge in the center of the pillow. Then lay the second back piece on top, also right sides together, with its hemmed edge overlapping in the center. Pin around the entire perimeter. If you have a ruffle, trim the top and bottom pattern pieces to match the rounded edges of the ruffle piece. Then make sure your stitch length is set back to what it was, 2.5 is typical. Stitch around the entire perimeter with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you aren't doing the ruffle version, you'll clip your corners now to reduce bulk. Finish the raw edges using a serger, a zigzag stitch, or pinking shears. This will help prevent the fabric from fraying, especially when washing. If you're finishing your edges with a zigzag stitch, set your machine to a width of 4 and a length of 2.5. Turn the pillow cover right side out, and at this point you can remove any visible threads with your snippers. Then you'll go ahead and insert your pillow form and you're finished.